Okay, Ms. Hancock,
Hello.
how are you doing? I'm John Kirtley. I'm the Director of the Board of Pharmacy, and I'm going to tell you a couple things about who you're talking to this afternoon and a couple things about the procedure of how we deal with this informal conference.
Okay.
On this side of the table, we are all staff members that work here in the Board of Pharmacy offices. And on the other side of the table, we've got 3 of our pharmacist board members who are decision makers on your application today. I see we've got a pharmacy technician application, and you let us know ahead of time that some stuff would come back, which what the board members will want to talk to you about here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
We usually kick off and let our attorney give a brief overview of why we're here, and then the board members would want to talk to you about that.
Okay.
More importantly, after a discussion with you, they're going to have some suggestion on how they would like to proceed with your application. It could be to approve it, deny it, hold it to consider it at a later date. We don't know exactly what they'll say until they come up with it. You have the choice of either agreeing or disagreeing with whatever they come up with. If you agree with it, we go forth with whatever they've instructed us to do. If you disagree, it's either a chance to say, like, forget this and walk away from it, or to request an appeal of this decision, which would be a full hearing before the full board at a later date.
Okay.
And we call that formal because it is a more formal procedure to be all 8 board members, a hearing officer, a court reporter, everybody gets sworn in. And it's just a procedure more like you would see if you went to court.
Okay.
So I always ask 2 things. You know why you're here today?
Yes.
Any questions about how this process works?
No. I say no, but yeah, no.
Well, and here's the thing. That's a good point, because if you do have a question about something or want some clarification or anything like that, by all means, stop us, interrupt us, get our attention. We realize you have not done this before, and we do this all the time. We want to help answer any questions that you have.
Okay. I don't think I have any questions.
Well, if it changes, let me know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Bales?
We brought Ms. Hancock in front of the committee this afternoon. There were some things on her background check that came up. She did tell us, as Dr. Kirtley said, there would be something. There's 3 incidents. One, November 9th, 2011, arrested for public intoxicating, threatening, and the 2nd degree, a misdemeanor, disorderly conduct. She went to court, was only convicted of the disorderly conduct. The other charges were dropped. I don't have a disposition of those in the court documents that she sent us. On December 27th, 2018, she was arrested and charged with 1st-degree assault on a failure household member, which is a misdemeanor. She pled guilty to that and was sentenced to 12 months probation and $500 fine and court costs. Then on October 19th, 22, she was arrested and charged with battery in the 3rd degree of misdemeanor, pled guilty, and was sentenced to fine and court costs and 1-year probation. And she completed that probation on November 9th, 2023. And these charges are still on her record. They've not been sealed or anything like that. And she has submitted a letter from her supervisor.
Yes, my RXOM.
So, good afternoon.
Hello.
So this sounds like there were 3 incidents, one from 2011, another from 2018, and another from 2022. Could you go through those in your own words and explain to us what happened?
Well, the 2011, I was a lot younger than what I am now. It was just a girl mouthy thing, and a little bit of alcohol was involved. And so that one, yeah. That's how I would explain that one. The 2018, I was in an abusive relationship with my ex-husband, and there was a gun that went off, and it missed the back of my head by inches. And so that's how that one went down. And the 2022, it was a fight with another female. I did see pictures of the female. I did plead guilty to it, but I don't believe that after her and I got through fighting that I was the one that did all of that damage to her. There was somebody else there after I left. So I know that the charges were against me, and I did not try to fight her with that. Since then I've moved out of the area. I do not have any contact with any of those people. I don't have any contact at all with anybody from that area. I've since remarried and moved on past all of that.
So I wanted to, so on the 28th, I get what you're saying about the 2011 thing. I mean, that was a long time ago. But on the 2018 incident, you were charged with first degree assault. What transpired for you to get that charge?
I hit my husband in his pocket with a hammer
Okay.
because, he had a drug paraphernalia pipe in his pocket, and I will be honest, and, I smashed it in his pocket with a hammer.
Okay.
There was no bruises or nothing left on him, and that's what transpired, the gun being fired at the back of my neck.
Okay.
So,
It takes us a minute to.
right, I understand. My RX OEM manager,
And what position does she?
she is the pharmacy manager. She's a technician. Yeah.
Pharmacist didn't write you a letter. right?
No, my pharmacist didn't. After that incident, my ex-husband and I was divorced, and I haven't had anything to do with anybody, like I said, in that area. We moved to Van Buren after that. After the 2022 thing.
So were you in treatment for drug abuse?
I did a few counseling things, but yeah, it wasn't court ordered. My mom died in 2016, and they said that it was more of a, deal pushing it to the other deal.
Emotional response?
Yeah.
And so you're currently employed at Walgreens?
Yes, sir.
And why do you want to be a technician?
If I would have found this job 20 years ago, I would have started it 20 years ago. I love this job. It is the best job I've ever had. I really like the people. I love helping the people, and it's awesome. I mean, like I said, if I would have found it 20 years ago, that's what I would have done. And actually, I would have been a pharmacist if I would have found it 20 years ago. But at this point, I think too old in my life to go on to be that. So I don't think I got the brains to do that in the school.
What are you doing right now in the pharmacy?
I'm just the cashier. I just check people out and I talk to the people and, understand things like that. I help everybody.
This letter says you help with tasks. Any other tasks that you're helping with?
Yeah, I pull like the delete list. Like the old stuff out. Other than that,
Like the will call, is that what you're talking about when you say delete, or you're talking about
Like-
out of dates?
yeah, like out of dates, like the ones that have been sitting there too long.
So the ones that have patient's name on them to pick them up
Yes.
and,
Yes. Nothing else to do with the medicine besides selling it out. But that's what I'm ready
so you
for.
back those out of the system?
Do what?
Do you back those out of the system?
I'm ready to do the filling part because that's what it looks really fun.
You have a question? So you completed your probation, all fine costs, all court costs and fines are settled.
Yes, sir. Completely with no issues whatsoever. And like I said, that last ordeal, I pled guilty just so I didn't have to deal with any of that stuff. And I paid a $1,300 fines and court cost just to settle it because I was already out of that area and I didn't want nothing to do with anybody or anything. I remarried my high school sweetheart. We bought a house in Van Buren, and that's where I've been. And that's how I got mixed up with Walgreens. Was this literally 5 minutes down the road from my house. So.
This is a lot of, this is 3 incidences where there's violence involved.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that probably causes some concern.
Yes, ma'am. I
And
understand
one's
that.
recent. I think that causes some concern.
So the one from October 22, what prompted the altercation?
It was actually in July of 21 is when the altercation happened.
Okay.
There was a lady came onto our property and stole some stuff. And whenever she was confronted with it, then she jumped me. And so it was, she swung at me first. And so it was a back and forth thing until she said she gave, I walked away. And she actually drove away from the scene. And 2 hours later is whenever she supposedly called for help. And I mean, her pictures look pretty bad. She looks pretty bad. She went to the hospital. Her pictures look horrible. But like I said, I don't believe that I did all of that damage. I think it was somebody else that was there, that did all that to her. But like,
Somebody there at your home or?
no, somebody there
after she left?
at where it was at, where the incident happened, because it wasn't at our home. It was down the road from our home.
So with that one being so recent, how have you changed your life or?
Like I said, I mean, the courts canceled out that, after I pled guilty, the courts couldn't find her, couldn't locate her. They actually ended up dropping the charges for my co-defendant because they could not find her. They could not locate her for any of that stuff. So he got his charges dropped. Mine was not because I pled guilty. So, but how I changed, I no longer think the way that I used to, once I got with my high school sweetheart and he got me away from all of that stuff, all of those people, from Northwest Arkansas, and we moved to Crawford County, and he got me, back down to what I call my normal place in life, and realizing what is important. Then I'm a different mindset. I know what's important is my job and my family and things like that. Like I said, this Walgreens thing is awesome. It's amazing. And if I could have found it 20 years ago, that's where I would have been.
So you're in Van Buren now?
Yes, I am.
And but before, when you say you got away from it, where was that? Where was that?
It was in Springdale, Fayetteville area.
Okay.
Yeah. A whole hour away, which we never go there. It's maybe once a year, twice a year, because his parents live there and my dad lives there. But other than that, we don't go, just on holidays.
You checked that you'd been treated for a drug, alcohol addiction, mental health disorder, participated in a rehabilitation program. When was that?
That was back in 2018, 2019, after the incident with my ex-husband.
And what was the treatment for?
It was at OGC, but it was whenever they had me evaluated to see if I had a drug addiction, but they blamed it more on my mental health than the drug addiction.
What was the drug?
The meth.
You were on, it was methamphetamine?
It was methamphetamines. I haven't touched any sort of drugs since 2019.
Do you have a medical marijuana card?
No, I do not. I don't drink. I don't just smoke cigarettes. I don't do anything.
What was there? Or July, so.
Then the court
About 3
issue.
years apart. About 3 years apart. Well, I'll put it this way, if we make a motion, I don't feel comfortable making the decision, just basically two of us.
Basically, you'd make a motion to not make a decision at this time.
Right,
If she
just
wanted,
defer it to
if she wanted to appeal and request a hearing before the full board, she could do so.
That way you just have more heads considering the issues.
That way it doesn't give her a denial or a negative action, but it's up to her to decide whether or not, if she wanted to have a hearing.
Right. That's right.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Sure.
Seconding that, or?
So the motion is not having to take any action.
So
today?
take no action today.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
So, Dr. Curley.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they're saying is they're not going to take any action on your application today. The board will do this at times to, what they're saying is, or what I'm hearing them say is, they're not going to approve your application today, but they also don't want to deny it, which would look like you had a negative action by the board, which puts you in a different position where someone thinks that you actually had action against you. With them not taking any action, if you wanted to pursue this further, you would need to request a hearing for the full board at a later date, which, as I described before, would be all 8 members of the board in a formal hearing. The board meets 3 times a year, June, October, and generally in February. So I believe, Ms. Bales, we'd reduced to writing the board took no action at this time on her application. If she wished to have a hearing, she'd have to request it for a later date.
I'll put all that in a letter.
So we'll send that to you so you can see it in writing as well.
Okay, so if I was to do that, then the board meets here again? So I'd have to come back to Little Rock.
Yeah, they meet in this office, like 2 days in June, 2 days in October, 2 days in February.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I know that there's no way of, persuading y'all any different. I appreciate y'all's time. I understood coming in here, my chances. And like I said, if it was 20 years ago and I could go back and take, my actions, I would totally, but it's my past and it made me who I am today. So, I'm not going to apologize for that. I wish I could, take back everything, but I can't. I'm not 20 years old. I'll be 43 in a couple days. So, it is what it is. So I appreciate y'all's time.
So thank you.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. Oh, I thought you were reaching for Canada.
Oil will be next.
Afternoon.
Hi,
Hello.
How are you doing, Ms. Cole?
good, how are you?
And is that correct pronunciation?
Coyle.
All right.
Coyle.
I will try my best.
Okay.
I'm John Kirtley. I'm the director of the Board of Pharmacy, and I'm going to tell you a little about who you're talking to at this table and a couple of things about the procedure for today. On this side of the table, the 3 of us are employees that work here on staff at the Board of Pharmacy. The other 3 people you're speaking to are pharmacy board members today, which are decision makers, which for you, you have a pharmacy technician application with the board. On your application, you told us that nothing was going to come back, but we did find some stuff which the board members want to talk to you about here in a little bit. The way we generally do this is after just a brief introduction, I'll turn it over to our legal counsel, Ms. Vales, and she'll tell the board members what had come back in your background check, and then they'll have a discussion with you, kind of back across the table, which is why we call this informal. More importantly, after the discussion, they're going to come up with some plan of what they want to do based on the discussion. It could be to approve your application, could be to deny your application, could be to take no action at all on your application, or to say they'd reconsider it at some later date. Whatever they decide or they suggest, you can either agree or disagree with. If you agree with it, we go forth with exactly what the board members have asked us to do as staff. And if you disagree, it's kind of your choice to either say, you know what, forget this application, walk away, never mind, or to request an appeal to where you would be able to have an appeal and a hearing before the full board, which we call the formal meeting.
Okay.
The full board is 8 members of the board, court reporter, a hearing officer. We swear everybody in as witnesses. And it's a more formal procedure. It looks more like what you'd see if you go to court or if you watch a court show or something. It's always asked, do you understand why you're here today?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about how this works?
No.
Realizing that you don't sit in that seat all the time, whereas we've done this a bunch. If you have any questions during it, by all means, wave your arms, get our attention,
Okay.
ask us any questions you have, because we'd be happy to try to help educate you or to answer any questions you might have.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Vales?
We brought Ms. Boyle in front of the committee this afternoon. As Dr. Curley said, she didn't disclose any previous arrests or citations. There was one from 2012, April 13, 2012, where she was charged with underage drinking by Scottsdale, Arizona police. She was 20 years and 9 months old at the time of the arrest. On May 2nd of that year, she entered a plea of guilty to the charge. According to her statement, she's complied with court orders, including paying a fine and attending an alcohol awareness class. The court records from Arizona could not be retrieved due to the number of years since the incident.
Hi.
So I know it's been a while since this occurred, but
Yeah.
tell us in your own words, what happened, please.
I was dating a guy at the time that was older, 3 months shy of my 21st birthday, and we had a disagreement and it was pretty loud. And the neighbors called the cops, and when they came, they were like, you need to either figure out a way to get home or we're going to take you in. I didn't have a way to get home. I couldn't get a hold of my mom, so they took me in. I was in there for a few hours. My mom finally got answered on the phone and she came and picked me up. So
why do you want to be a pharmacy technician?
my mom actually kind of pushed it. She works at CVS Pharmacy and she was like, they make really good money. You should get into it. You don't have to go to school. And that was in Arizona. In Arizona, it's a little different. You do have to take the test and you have to study and you have to pass it and whatnot. So I put in the work to do that and decided it was something I like. You can help patients and I really like doing that. So when I moved out here just recently back in the end of December, I applied for my license to try and continue that.
Mhm. So you've been working as a technician for how long back in Arizona?
4 years maybe.
Okay. And what are you doing right now?
Right now I'm working for, I don't know if you're familiar, but Infinity Pharmacy. It's, they work on specialty medications. So we call patients and we set up the shipping for them, sometimes put their profiles together and then collect
I
like
was right
payment.
outside the doors about a week and a half ago.
Were you?
Yes.
I was
I
there.
didn't go in.
I was there.
Yeah,
Let you in.
they wouldn't let me in.
That's
They
okay.
turned me away.
There's not much in there, just a bunch of cubicles.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
And I would just like to add, this would have been one that staff would have approved had she disclosed.
so when you got to that question on the application, what made you check no instead of yes?
when I did it for Arizona, I put yes. And they were like, okay, I didn't want to put a hold on my license. I wanted it to be like smooth. So in Arizona, when I put yes, they were like, we need proof. So I went to the Scottsdale court and I met with people and they're like, we don't have anything on file. And I was like, I kept the file and everything in this like folder. And I was like, I have it right here. Like, here's what I paid. And they're like, we don't have anything. We don't have a way to prove that this is what happened to you. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't really know what to do at this point. Well, they ended up figuring it out. And so I thought when I did this one, I was like, it's not on my file. I don't know if I should put yes or no because I don't want there to be a delay. And then when I put no, they were like, this is back. It didn't come back on my Arizona license when I applied. They were like, there was nothing that came back. So we kind of need that proof. So it was to my understanding that it fell off after 7 years.
So
That
what are
was
you doing at Infinity right now?
I'm a patient care coordinator.
What do they do?
That's like setting up the shipments for
Oh,
medications.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion. Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
And
to
I
like.
was outside the doors. I was dropping my wife off. She was doing a tour. So
Oh,
they,
was she?
they didn't deny me access. I was just dropping someone off.
dropping some-
It's in a nice location though.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, having just moved there, it's a pretty good spot. I appreciate it.
We'll take back up
front
front
and
and get you permit.
Thank you so much.
Gotta go in order. Yeah, I got Denisha Daniel.
Oh. There you go. And applicants all day so far.
How'd we look? Could you tell the makeup? I was gonna say, could you tell the touch-ups have been done there?
You're not supposed to start lying till you get up here. I understand. How are you doing? Is it Ms. Daniels?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm John Kirtley. I'm the Director of the Board of Pharmacy. Going to talk to you for a minute about the procedure and let you know kind of who you're talking to this afternoon. On this side of the table, we are all staff members that work here at the Board of Pharmacy. On the other side, we've got 3 of our pharmacy board members that are decision makers here today with your application. We see we do have a pharmacy technician application for you. You told us nothing was going to come back on it, but I think something changed in there, which the board members want to talk to you about here in a little bit. What we generally do is take this, we'll turn it over to Ms. Bales, our attorney, to let the board members know what we had found in your application. And then they'll generally want to have a discussion with you back and forth kind of across the table. At the end of the discussion, they're going to come up with some suggestion for what they want to do. It could be to approve your application, to deny your application, to table it, to say they're not going to make a decision. But whatever they come up with today, you can either agree or disagree with. If you agree with it, we go forth with whatever it is they've asked staff to do. If you disagree, then it's your choice to either kind of say, forget this and walk away from it, or to ask for a hearing, a formal hearing, and appeal their decision to the full board at a later date. Full board is all 8 members, a hearing officer, a court reporter. We swear everybody in, and it's just a more formal procedure than us talking back and forth across the table.
Gotcha.
So I always ask 2 questions. First of all, do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
What questions do you have about how the process works?
I think you just explained it to me.
Well, and I ask that because I understand that, you've never sat in that chair and we've done all this a bunch. So if at any point during this, if you've got a question about something, wave your hands, get our attention, ask us any questions you have that we'll try our best to help explain anything to you that you got a question over.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Vales?
We brought Ms. Daniels in front of the committee today. She did not disclose any arrests or charges, but there is one arrest for possession of a controlled substance. It's out of Arizona. And according to her statement, she was pulled over by law enforcement, had 3 THC edibles in her purse. The rest looks like it was from 2021. According to the bail bond documents that she submitted, but there's a criminal summons dated October of 2022. And there's also a document in your packet entitled Agreed Setting, October 19th of 2023 at 1:30, and it says the purpose was disposition. Ms. Daniels and I talked about that because it looked like that was a court date and some action might have been taken. But she didn't have any other documentation. So the disposition of that is unknown, so we'll need to get Ms. Daniels to provide us more information on that. That is all the documents I could get out of Arizona as well. So
So Ms. Vales, two incidents or?
One incident.
One incident?
But it looks like it happened in 21, and then Arizona, they sent her a criminal summons in 22. And then it looks like a court date in October
Can I say something?
of,
I was just gonna say it was
Sorry, Texas.
Nacogdoches, Texas.
sorry, misspoke. Looks like a court date in October of 23. But when I talked to Ms. Daniels about this on the phone, she didn't really know. She didn't have any more information to add.
So can you tell us what happened?
Okay, from the beginning, I did get stopped with the edibles in Nacogdoches. During that time, it proceeded, I had someone else in the car with me. They proceeded to search the car and everything like that. So being with it in the wrong place at the wrong time and with the edibles, I did do through that weekend in jail in Nacogdoches. And I bailed out like that Monday. And then that's when we started going to court to try to plead, get another plea deal with my lawyer. And in October, I really don't remember. I don't think I went to court in that month, but I did continue to go to court after that, after the arrest, like 2 times maybe.
So do you know, what is your status with the court down there? If sometimes we see like, if it looks to us like you had a court date in October, but if you don't remember going to court, like at some point they'll send out a failure to appear or something like
I
that.
haven't received any of it.
You pay all your penalties and fines?
Yes, sir.
We have that, Ms. Vales?
We don't. I have a question though, but it's a little off topic. So I got a phone call from your manager at Walgreens. She indicated to me that you told them that you already had a tech license. Was there some confusion with that?
Yes, ma'am. I went to do like a little online class on the internet and they just provided me like a little certificate or something in that area. So that's why I'm going through this process now to try to get my pharmacy technician license the right way, I'm supposed.
Okay. So have you cleared that up with your pharmacy manager?
I still work there as a cashier right now.
But they know that you
Oh, yes, ma'am.
don't have your license. Oh, I told her at that point when she
Yes,
called me,
ma'am.
but they knew from you that you didn't yet have your license.
Yes, ma'am.
So you hadn't been working as a technician at Walgreens?
No, ma'am, just as a cashier.
Okay.
So we don't know the disposition of the current.
No.
No, and Ms. Daniels and I talked about that because it looked like she would have had to appear by the document that you have. It looked like she would have had to go back to court on the 29th, but you didn't go back to court on the 29th.
No, ma'am. The last time I went to court was last month. To talk to my lawyer because of my case is still pending.
So it's still pending?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Case is still pending and that all goes back to the 2021 edibles issue.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a medical marijuana card?
No, sir.
Last time you used it?
Since that incident,
Oh,
yeah. Yes, sir. I'm clean. I've been trying to get back on the right track. Just elevate myself, stay around good people, people that don't do negative things, so I won't be around peer pressure. I'm getting ready to go back to school, try to get into the nursing program. I'm a mom, so I really just go to work and trying to get back in school at the moment.
So what nursing program are you starting?
I'm in El Dorado, so we will be at the South Start Community College there in town.
Are you doing like your CNA or?
I have received that. I'm
Okay.
a CNA, I'm a medical assistant, I got my phlebotomy license.
Why do you want to be a pharmacy tech?
I did at one point in time, I did study medicine. So after me studying it, trying to get the knowledge about it, I started to try to go out and do it hands-on to see was it really, something I was interested in. So it was, I'm good at my job. I think I'm gonna pursue is trying to be a pharmacist, study medicine.
Where do you work at right now?
Sorry.
For a pharmacy technician, do you have a prospective job that you're looking at? Or are you working somewhere like a Walgreens that?
Yeah, I'm working at a Walgreens right now until I can get over this little hump and to see what my next move would be.
What are you doing at Walgreens now?
I'm a cashier there.
In the pharmacy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So do you know when you go back to court?
I go back to court on May the 30th.
So you should have it resolved sometime at the end of May.
Yes, ma'am.
We need to get this resolved first.
I think at a minimum, it needs to be resolved, but I mean, this is a controlled substance charge that is fairly recent.
Two and a half, I guess, a little.
So no medical marijuana card.
No, sir.
You haven't used marijuana since the incident. And tell me specifically again, what date the incident was?
I don't know the exact date.
Like the month and year.
It was in the fall. It was cold, so maybe like in October or November, somewhere up in those months.
So not 5 months ago.
2021.
No, 20 and 21 that year.
That, I just wanted to confirm that. No other drug use,
No, sir.
no meth, no.
No, sir.
opiates.
This is actually my first time ever being in trouble.
I mean, I think we've got to get the resolution of this. How will that work whenever she appears back in court? Is it
I mean, they should give her documents, or she could have the ability to pull up get a copy of the docket, and we would know what the sentence would be.
but at that point, are they going to give her, hey, it's been 2 years, are they going to give more probation at that?
I mean, I
point?
don't-
Is this
It's
I don't know.
possible they would give her like a year probation or something like that. It's
I
a
wanna
misdemeanor.
say yes, ma'am.
So-
I want to say that's what my public offender told me. I probably would be on probation and pay out a fine.
And I'm guessing times are, the 2 years since then don't count anything towards that.
No,
And it's Texas, so it may be a little different.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a different court system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could ask that, once that's completed, we get the documents and we reschedule her to come before another informal to talk with you guys to see whether she's on probation, how long she's on probation, what the final disposition is, that type of thing.
Yeah.
We have done that in the past.
Could we go ahead and conditionally say once she completes her
and it's,
sentence to this, then we can issue the license at that point?
Well, if she's, I mean, if we're thinking some period of time though, there's a lot can happen in that amount of time. I just say we defer it for now, not taking action.
I was just trying to save her another trip back before the board,
If I
and
got
that would
to
assume
come back,
nothing
I
else
will.
comes up. But if nothing else changed, and they say, okay, well, you've got 6 month or year probation. We could say, well, we'll approve it once she's completed this, paid all her fines. No, I don't think we need to see her again if this is the issue. If she finishes that.
If they give her a year probation, her application is going to expire before that is up.
Which would mean we get another criminal background check.
And get another criminal.
If there was
background check.
nothing else on it, you could mark it approvable at that point, but there's like 50 moving parts in that.
Yeah.
If she goes back to court and they go, you're free and clear, that's pretty clean and possibly fairly quick. But I think to Dr. Richmond and Dr. McCrady's point is if they put her on probation for a year, we'll have to have a whole nother application, which would show us if anything else came back.
Could, I don't want to make it too complicated, but could you approve conditionally if there is no probation period and this gets resolved in May? But if not, then it becomes a reapplication,
A
a
reappearance.
reappearance.
After she meets the
Yeah.
terms of whatever the court orders.
Yeah,
And then it'll determine however long they put her on. It's at that point, whether it's a new application or if this one's still valid at that point.
When does the
I don't know.
application fall off?
January or. You go back to the top.
she submitted in December.
So December of this year. It's good until December 5th.
and then let's, again, I'm not trying to make it too complicated, but I'm on staff or whatever, but if she goes to court in May, it's resolved, they drop the charges or they she doesn't get
Defer it,
probation or they-
something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that. Issue the license, but if there's a probation period attached to it or something along those lines, then defer it. But we wouldn't administratively deny it at that point, so she didn't have a denial on the record?
Yeah.
Okay,
This expires.
okay.
You're basically given a definition of approvable if or reappearance if, but not denial, because denial could hurt her
Yeah.
nursing stuff.
What I don't want to do is give a conditional approval for some period down the road beyond probation.
Yeah.
Because now we're throwing too many variables in.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Either
we're
it-
limited to December regardless, anything you do today, right?
I mean, you could say if she meets all her court criteria prior to the expiration of this application with no other issues, because if she got arrested in Arkansas.
Yeah.
We should get a rat back and it should tell us. So if everything is resolved before the expiration of this application, then it would be approvable. And if it's after this application, she would have to choose to reapply and then we'd see if anything else came up on the criminal background check.
So it could be resolved as early as her next court date.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Well,
we'll
she
see if
could-
they.
She could get 6 months and then be resolved in November.
Right.
Before the application expires.
I can put all that in writing to her, so she can take it to her attorney in, Texas.
Have you got all that?
Yeah, we don't get rat bags anymore. They just remind us.
Okay. So, do we have any other? May want to make that a motion?
Rodney? I think you
Yeah, I'll
worded,
make
you
it.
worded it well.
Yeah, I'll make it.
He said, so moved.
If,
Yeah, exactly.
if completed,
Second that.
I've got if meets court criteria prior to expiration of the application, then staff has the ability to approve it. If it's after the application expires, she'll need to reapply and do a new criminal background check.
Yes.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
so to help explain really quickly what they're saying, since I know you've got to go back and talk to your defender down there. If you go to court in May and they go, we've drug this on long enough and we are dismissing this case and you have no findings, no probation or anything else because you've had no more arrests, no other issues with law enforcement, if they can argue that for you, and we get notification in May that it's all done, we'll give you permit in May. If they say you're going to have to serve 3 months probation, which is a weird length of time, but just for humor's sake, and so you serve from May and you get done probation in August, and we get clearance that that's complete in August, anything that completes all of this before December, I think it's December the 3rd or December the 1st or something like that of this year, then the board would be able to issue your permit as soon as we get that notification.
Okay.
All right?
And then when you do your application next time, be sure and
If she had to
check
reapply.
if you have to reapply, yeah, if you have to reapply, be sure and mark yes on there.
Yes.
So that way.
And let us know up
Yeah,
front.
just let us know up front.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
You too.
Don't speed through Sheridan.
Is the Fordyce Cafe still open?
No, but the sign's still up.
Sign's still
I
up.
never ate there.
Do you know the story behind that, the Rolling Stones?
Oh, I've heard it.
Yeah.
I swear I think more Mac.
Yeah.
X.
Time for Jeff and Misty. Come on up, guys. Unless you need a break or anything. But Jeff, if you'll hit push and release it, it should turn green for go. If it's her zone, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and I'll go through my normal spiel for the board.
My name is Leah Herkamp and I go by Misty.
And I'm Jeff Singleton, her attorney.
So I think that most everybody at the table kind of knows who we all are, but on this side of the table, myself, Dr. McCready, Ms. Bales, we're all staff members here at the Board of Pharmacy. And then we've got 3 of our pharmacy board members, Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Brian Jolly, who is chairing this committee for us, and Dr. Rodney Richmond. In this specific case, and you guys will see it here, in a moment, I'll have Ms. Bales give an overview, but I'll say it is convoluted because we'll all agree on that very shortly. But as you've kind of seen today, generally this will have staff give an overview and then we'll have a discussion between you guys and the board and the agency. And at some point, these 3 are going to have some suggestion of what they want to do in this instance. Whatever they come up with, if you need time to confer with counsel, it's not something you have to tell us right here, sitting here right now. If you agree or disagree with it, oftentimes people want to see it in writing with whatever the action is at the end. But you have the opportunity to either agree or disagree with it. If you agree with it, we go forth with what the board members have said or instructed us. And if you disagree, it opens it up that it would be punted basically to the full board for a full hearing at a later date. Every once in a while, our board members will defer a decision. You might have seen that earlier, or will say that they would only be comfortable with the full board making a decision or make no decision at this time. So I always ask the same 2 things. You guys know why you're here today. Any questions about the procedure before we start?
No.
And once again, since you have legal counsel, if you need a timeout and you need to talk with legal counsel, let us know. We've done that before as well. We've got a couple places you guys can sit down and talk or discuss anything you need to.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so Dr. Huurkamp's here for informal conference. In your packet, you have an order notice of hearing. I did that for purposes so everybody knows what we're talking about today. You don't have to make findings of fact or anything on that today. But this fact scenario is a little bit convoluted. Dr. Huurkamp was a practicing pharmacy at All Care. And she was on duty at all the relevant times regarding this incident. On April 11th, All Care received an electronic prescription written for CG, date of birth 1977. And he's an inmate at the Adult Detention Center in Pine Bluff and that prescription was for glipizide 5 milligrams. That prescription was incorrectly entered into All Care Pharmacy's system as being written for another CG. These are the exact same names. We're just using CG for protect HIPAA, but these two gentlemen have the exact first name and last name are the exact same. Their date of births are different. It was entered into All Care Pharmacy system as being written for CG with the date of birth in 1944. That person was a patient at Stonebridge Senior Living in Blytheville. The prescription was dispensed to CG, date of birth 1944, by the Stonebridge staff. Then a refill was incorrectly requested by All Care in August. A refill request was made of Wendell Johnson, who treated CG that was in the detention center. And he approved the refill. The refill went to the wrong patient and it was refilled under patient CG, who was in the assisted or nursing home. And that was a higher dose. This caused patient harm. And on September 7th, 2023, CG 1944 was admitted to the hospital ICU because his blood sugar had dropped dangerously low. He'd never been diagnosed with diabetes, but he was incorrectly dispensed and then ingested glipizide for approximately 6 months due to the prescription error. And it's complicated because there's not an issue of counseling because both of these patients one was in a nursing facility, the other was in a detention center. So there was no way for Dr. Huurkamp to sort of visually determine this was not the right patient. So we didn't obviously charge her with anything like that, but it would have maybe cured this potential error. Also error made by the nurse that dispensed this to the patient incorrectly at the nursing home. So that's why it gets a little bit convoluted, but that's my effort into making it make sense.
And I think Ashley can correct me, but I think the original prescription actually had some refills on it. So it was filled and then refilled, and then it was sent to get an approval. They got the approval, sent it back at a different dose.
Yeah, higher dose.
At a higher dose. So there was some other fills in there in between that you would, maybe somebody would have caught the nursing home or somebody, but it was not caught.
So the refill were on the original patient?
So prescription came in, and I'm going to say young man, older man.
Yes.
Prescribed for young man
Okay.
in jail.
Okay, got it.
It was same exact name, Joe Smith, and it was just put under the wrong patient initially in the pharmacy. So the older man got it. And when that error happened, everything else with the prescription was correct except for the date of birth, which also changed where it went. Because this is a long-term care pharmacy, there's no issue with patient counseling. So there was no intervention at point of sale where there would have been patient counseling to catch it. And that's not her fault. That's nobody's fault. Prescription goes to the nursing home, which does not have an order on file apparently for older gentlemen to have the meds, but somehow proceeds to dose it to the gentleman. And even then through like their EMR system orders refills and refills it however many times. When it's up, they send, I don't know if it was the pharmacy or the home. I thought it was the home.
The pharmacy requested a refill.
Okay, it's the pharmacy to refill it, requested a refill. The prescriber who'd seen young man in jail approved older gentleman in nursing home for a double dose of it, which increased the dose.
On the basis of the younger guy's blood sugar not being under control?
We don't know.
Okay.
But that's how goofy this whole thing is. So at that point, the pharmacy gets an order and fills it absolutely according to the order for the older man in the home, sends it to the home, it's administered to the man, and then he has the side effects of the increased dose. So the side effects didn't even happen or arguably didn't happen until the increase in the dose after taking it for a number of months.
So how did we get here today?
There was a
Complaint.
complaint by the older gentleman's family member that he had been harmed due to the med error. And I think that, you know, we've discussed this with her counsel as well. Like,
Sorry.
this is a mess of messes because the one thing for Dr. Huurkamp is that when it came in, it was initially put in under the wrong patient date of birth, right name, wrong patient date of birth, which started the whole kind of waterfall effect or the ball rolling. But because of the specific nature, all the other safety checks outside the control of the pharmacy also failed in this instance. Like generally you would think, well, if this med comes to a long-term care facility, or if it happened opposite way to the jail, well, if they don't have an order for it, then they don't administer it, but that failed somehow.
That's true, but there are some steps that would have occurred at the pharmacy.
Mhm.
One, it's a sulfonylurea. It's being entered on the profile of an elderly patient, which would have triggered an age alert because this is an ISMP high alert drug. So there are some other things that should have occurred as a part of the drug utilization review process in the pharmacy before the drug ever left. Specifically because it was being entered for an elderly patient.
That very well could pop up in the DUR. That's something that the pharmacy consultant, I would think, would have identified as a ISMP drug because they have duty to review charts monthly.
Well, but the pharmacist at the dispensing pharmacy has a responsibility to do a drug regimen review, which reviews the drug, the dose, frequency of administration, duration of use, drug interaction, drug disease, age, weight, gender, overuse, underuse, clinical misuse or abuse. So that covers the age-related, and when you're dispensing a oral sulfonylurea for an elderly patient, that, since it's on that profile, this gentleman would have been what, 56, 70, over 70 years old, then he would be elderly.
So in your computer system at All Care, do you have your correctional facility patients and your long-term care patients in the same database, or do you go to separate?
Correct. We have nursing home, assisted living, and the correctional are all in the same system.
Or do you look up the patient, I would assume by the patient name, not by the facility?
Correct, by patient name. And when it came in triage, it was triaged to the assisted living pharmacy side. So it was my error in missing the date of birth.
And
Triage, can you
Yeah.
explain that process to me?
for triage for you guys, all the faxes, electronic orders, or anything else come to central location, the way I understand it, in this facility. So the central location has processing pharmacist, and you know, when we talk about Miller, we talk about front end, back end. That all comes into one front end center, whether it's assisted living, long-term care of you know, nursing home, or a jail or prison. So all of that data input happens in one spot, and it's all one, you know, global system. Historically, I mean, they had approval to do offsite order entry years ago. So all the order entry would happen like in one place in Arkadelphia. And then after the patient is identified, the patient would link to whichever facility it's going to.
Correct.
So if it was a correctional one, it would then, the order that had been filled would go to the printer at the correctional facility, or go to the printer at the associated assisted living supplying pharmacy or nursing home supplying pharmacy.
So all the holes in the Swiss cheese just kind of lined up. It sounds like.
Unfortunately for this patient, yes.
So there is in your packet, just to Dr. Richmond's point, and they did not send us a copy of what the clinical warnings are, but if you look at the software, it does indicate that they have the DUR review and clinical warnings and all that.
Yeah.
We don't have a copy of that. I don't know, we don't have any idea what that said at all, but it does indicate that that information is out there.
I don't think we pulled
I
a
think it's
profile either.
You're referring to like the beers list, it's on the beers list, or no?
I don't know if glipizide, glyburide
here.
certainly is. I don't know if glipizide
Yeah, I
is. If you're
can't
gonna
remember.
use one in the elderly, glipizide is the better one. It's
Yeah.
shorter half-life.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm generally just referring to, there are drugs that are high alert drugs. This is a high alert drug specifically in the elderly. You admit you missed the date of birth.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to beat you up here. In my opinion, there's an error. It's unfortunate. There's no acceptable error rate, but the error is human. I mean, I'm not trying to absolve you of what happened, but I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, when I mentioned the Swiss cheese, that's actually a model of med errors, you know, and so have you guys done anything, put any system fixes in place to try to prevent this from happening again?
I know that I personally have. I've completely reevaluated my operating procedure. I do not enter a prescription that a secondary pharmacist does not check. And I've done a lot of CE to help in the prevention of pharmacy errors, some medication safety across healthcare teams, just to do more due diligence.
And it looks like in this case that more likely than not, this patient was looked up by their name
Correct.
and not their date of birth.
Correct.
If you look it up by date of birth, it's going to probably be more specific. It's unlikely that you'd have two exact names on the same date of birth unless they're just duplicate profiles. So that's one thing. Do you have anything in place regarding high alert drugs? And not just this one, but I mean, anticoagulants, so, you know, Coumadin and Eliquis.
Yes.
I mean, the methotrexate, for example. So you do have high alert systems in place to catch those and make sure that there's duplicate review.
Yes.
Does your system have any way of popping up a same name alert? If you have I know that gets a little bit maybe manual to keep up with. I know in the hospital setting, we do have this come up too, where we have two patients with same name and we'll have some same name alerts flash. Do you know if your system will do anything like that?
We have manually entered those on patients that do have duplicate names.
Yeah.
And they did, in the last page of your packet does have their action plan, pharmacy action plan.
What page is that?
Yeah, very last. So I know Dr. Kierkamp has already mentioned she's done some CE. I know we talked with council about that before. Can you tell them what CE you've done?
I've done 6 hours in prevention of pharmacy errors, medication safety across healthcare teams, preventing burnout, and some 3 others I had
6 hours total.
since September, when I became aware.
And then the action plan also.
Yeah.
And I
It
think,
sounded like you said more than what. So a total of 6 hours?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
we're having our sidebar that, you know, when you search by date of birth, although you think it's more specific, it's only more specific if you search by name and date of birth, because there's so many people that we would see even in small stores with repetitive dates of birth. So,
Well, yeah, and my point was, is if you look
Yeah,
it up by
you get
date of
both.
birth and then confirm the name,
yeah.
you're going to be more specific that way.
And that's part of what I think they're planning to correct is it's, you know, they put their own multi-point system in that where it's not just name.
And to Dr. Richmond's point, I know we all appreciate the way that this is being handled and talking through this. I would want to point out on Misty's behalf, she's been a pharmacist for 31 years. I don't believe she's ever been subject to any type of review or discipline or anything. And I know we have talked about, and I'm a lawyer, I'm not a pharmacist, so you guys are speaking a different language to some extent. We have prepared something that shows Misty's, and this is her lawyer talking, her very limited exposure to this back on the date it was first filled. And then all of the events that took place afterwards, the Swiss cheese that Dr. Jolly talked about. I think you guys have that, but we do have something that sort of goes into that as far as a timeline of events since then. But I know that Misty, in talking to her, I think first and foremost wanted to say, and I don't want to put words in her mouth because she can say this. but I know how sorry she feels for the patient. I mean, I know that particularly the fact that she was involved, although I think a very small point, I think there were a lot of balls that were dropped afterwards, but honestly and candidly, she will acknowledge, you know, she wishes she wasn't involved. She wished that had not happened. And again, I don't want to put words in her mouth because we sort of jumped into this, but I do know that that's how she feels because she's expressed that to me multiple times.
Well, I can appreciate that there are a lot of downstream events that happen, but the cascade started here.
Correct.
And she's quite contrite
Absolutely.
that she accepts that. And so it doesn't make it any less important, but what else can you do?
It helps when people take it seriously and take it to heart.
Absolutely. And you have already begun I mean, we would have asked you for an action plan. I probably would like to see a few more hours of CE. But I mean, this is an unfortunate incident. No, you would not have done this on purpose.
Definitely not. And actually on that day, the prescription came, I filled it at 1:34 and I went home at 1:45 sick. So I shouldn't have ever come to work that day. If I can't give my best, then I shouldn't be there. So that is regrettable.
Is it okay for me to ask? I mean, I think it appears from a statement I'm reading that the patient is okay. The patient made a recovery.
That's our understanding,
Yeah.
that it was a very scary event, but once it was figured out what all was happening, that seems to be okay from our understanding.
Okay.
I think when it happened, you had, it appeared to me you had everybody trying to figure out what happened and what went wrong and where it went wrong. So it wasn't just the pharmacy trying to figure out, it was also the home trying to figure out and the prescriber trying to figure out. And I think in some of that, there was some miscommunication at first of, oh, there's no harm. And then it's like, oh, no, there might have been some harm, but trying to figure out who's on first with this took a minute.
One more CE or?
Well, I would recommend this be non-disciplinary.
Yeah.
I'd like to see 4 more hours of continuing education. We've already seen the action plan, which is something that we would have asked for. And I don't know if there's any appropriate amount for recovering investigation costs, but other than that, that's my recommendation. That we accept the action plan specifically as fulfillment of what we would ask of her. And just an additional 4 hours of CE. So 10 hours total that would not count in your 30 hours of biannual renewal.
Okay.
Specifically on medication errors, and you be the judge as to which ones apply.
Okay.
The aim is for you to just embellish your practice. And so along this line, whatever it is that you deem appropriate.
In the past, when we've had an error, there's oftentimes been like a $250 penalty or anything like that. I don't know whether that's appropriate here, or what you want to do.
Investigative costs.
Yeah, that's been kind of our de minimis
Yeah.
investigative costs when there's, no failure to counsel or anything like that. But it's seen as non-disciplinary for,
It's not important.
yeah.
Yeah,
So a non-disciplinary $250 fee or cost.
investigative, how do we word that?
You do say
Investigative.
investigative cost.
Yeah.
I'll put it all in writing and
If they motion and
You
approve.
good with
Yes,
that?
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Boone, you have any other?
Second.
Motion and a second, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. I think we may have a break until our next one shows up, maybe a little bit. Did you want to try to catch him on anything else? Okay, you got a couple minutes, Jeff? You may want to talk to her first, though.
He's like me.
So we'll take a break and we'll come back in as soon as our next appointment gets here.
Hello, sir. Good, how are you?
Just a day older. You might as well go ahead and turn it on. There you go. So if you want to tell us who you are, I'll tell you who all you're talking to up here and just a couple things about our procedure.
Okay. I'm Sherita Smuke, and I am from Pencold Specialty Pharmacy in Denver, Colorado, in the pink there.
Okay. Sheree, I'm John Kirtley. I'm the director of the Board of Pharmacy. On this side of the table, we are all staff members here at the board offices. Myself, Dr. Brendan McCready is our assistant director. Miss Ashley Bells is our legal counsel. Dr. Kevin Robertson is one of our inspector investigators. He specializes in a lot of our sterile compounding area as well as health systems. On the other side of the table, we have our board members. We have Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Brian Jolly, who's chairing this informal for us today, and Dr. Rodney Richmond. So in this one is a little bit different because we've mainly heard from individual applicants for things like technician permits and stuff today. This one is a specialty pharmacy application that we've got for an out-of-state pharmacy that we'll go over in a little bit. Generally, in these situations, we will have kind of an overview from staff, and then we will have discussion. We call it informal because it's kind of everybody discussing, asking questions, trying to get things cleared up in our minds. And at some point, the board members will make a motion for some type of action they would suggest. Because this is informal, you have the opportunity to either agree or disagree with whatever action that they would say. They could say they would vote to approve the application pending some documents or some other agreement, deny the application, table it, request more documents, but whatever they come up with, if you agree with it, we go forth with whatever it is they've instructed us to do. If you disagree, since it's an application, you kind of have two choices. One is to say, kind of forget this and just walk away from it. The other choice would be to say, to request a hearing before the full board at a later date to consider the application. So I always ask kind of two questions. Do you know why you're here today?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about how the procedure works?
No.
If at any point during this, realizing this is the first time you've sat at this table and we do this all the time, if you've got any questions or anything, by all means, get our attention, raise your hand. We want to help answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to staff. Dr. Jolly, if you'll hand me that microphone, we'll give it to Dr. Robertson. Thank you.
So we received an application on Pencold Pharmacy. And as we do on every application that we get that's compounding, we ask for inspections, any FDA correspondence, BPPs, depending on where the application is from and what kind of inspections they have in their home state. We may ask for a VPP, that type of thing. This application has been pending for just a little while, but once we got through all of the sterile compounding part, as far as the facilities, their policies, procedures, their compounding techniques, that type of thing. There were some issues. We went through all of those. VPP came, inspection got here. Dr. Robertson and I both looked at them. We don't really have a lot of we really don't have any issues with their technique of compounding. The issues we have are, one, they use pre-printed blanks.
That are pharmacy specific.
They ship to providers. They're 503A, not a 503B. And I'm going to ask Sheree to explain the relationship with Revelation Pharmacy, Revelation Custom RX. That's actually, we don't have any documents on that, but one of our board members did notice one of the emails is from there. So we'd like to know what that is. And maybe let you explain to us what your procedures are, what we've talked about as far as whether you can ship to a prescriber, pre-printed blanks, that type of thing. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you just kind of speak to the board members and tell them where you're from, why you want a license in Arkansas, and what your business model is per se. Okay?
Dr. McCready, before could you repeat, so your concerns were that they ship directly to providers?
They are shipping semaglutide, those type things. She can tell you what products they do compound. They're shipping to providers. In Arkansas, you have to ship to the end user. They use pre-printed blanks that have their pharmacy name on them. We don't allow that. Basically just their business model of maybe some direction of prescriptions to their facility, which may impede patient choice, freedom of choice. And then whatever, then we'd like to know about the relationship with this Revelation Pharmacy, revcustomrx.com is what the email is. So if you can tell us about that also. And I know that's a group of 503A and 503B compounders, and maybe you can explain what their business relationship is with Pincall.
Okay,
Okay?
so Revelation Pharmaca owns our company. They are the parent company of right now, maybe 16 different pharmacies of 503A and 503B. So they buy mostly compounding pharmacies. So we're under one umbrella of a company. However, Pincall runs as its own separate kind of entity, if that makes sense. So they are a parent company. They do our human resources. They have a marketing, a sales type of division, a CEO, CFO, all of those things. But in-house in our pharmacy, we're independent. Our owner sold to Revelation, but we still run as an independent pharmacy, if that.
And when did that change of ownership occur?
2021.
So this application, we received this application on July 18th of 2023.
Yes.
And under the ownership information, we asked to please provide the names, addresses, and percentage ownership of all owners and corporations. And the only person it has is Cherie Dismuke, which is you, as 100% owner.
It's a corporation. So I am the corporate owner of our facility.
But they also own,
Yes.
yes, and that's not actually released on this application. All that information was not provided on this application. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what else did you ask me?
So
ahead.
on that, we would have to get clarification that who the ownership of the business. It sounds like you're the corporate officer,
Yes.
but the corporation is owned by another corporation or a series of corporations or something like that. So,
Yes, and I have a corporate breakdown of that.
okay. So we want to see that. And oftentimes what I describe, because it's more understandable to a lot of people, is sometimes that's a listing and sometimes that's a spider graph. And a spider graph seems to make sense of here's how all the rungs in the ladder or the web is woven in that kind of thought process. Another thing that Dr. McCready pointed out, and we have seen this in the past, especially with compounders that have specialty compounded products, is it's not legal in Arkansas to supply prescription blanks or orders with the names of pharmacies on them. Like you could give a pamphlet to say, here are the things we offer, but if you actually offer the order sheets, a 503B could do that for ordering of products for like a hospital or for a clinic to use in the hospital. But when it's 503A, which means patient specific, you can't do that.
Yeah, so our order blank actually does not have our name on it. There is a cover sheet of the order blanks, which explains who we are and all of our information, which has that, but the actual order prescription itself does not have our information.
Okay. Make sure. So
That is a lot in color.
It's like a 4-page
Yes,
that comes together.
yes.
You can't do that.
Okay,
Because I understand we had the same argument for someone in the past. They said, well, I didn't put it on the face of the order. I put a map to the pharmacy on the back. They
gotcha.
were like, no, that's still part of the order form because it's a packet. And so like you could probably have a pamphlet explaining who you are and instructions, but you can't make forms for people, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That would seem to be, it looks like the form has a QR code.
It does, to scan to order directly from it. So, and that's just something that more for awareness, like sometimes we have these conversations because if you got a permit to ship in Arkansas and sent those to prescribers, like we will take action on every one of those that's reported to us. And we would much rather just not have that issue.
Same.
I know we want to talk about some of the preparations specifically, but then also, and this is an issue that we have done our best to educate current permit holders on, and I'm sure we will have cases on it coming up. But talk to us about the shipment of products to the prescriber's office for administration, since you're 503A, not a B.
So everything we ship is patient specific. They have to have a patient relationship, of course, so they send the prescription to us. We usually send the first dose. Some prescribers prefer their first dose of Trimix urology centers mostly, where we send the first dose to them so that they can educate and teach the patient, and then all subsequent prescriptions then go to either their office or the patient. Mostly it's to the patient after that, but we do ship to offices as long as it has a patient name. It's not the same patient every time. It has to be a different patient, different, we go through all of those avenues to make sure it's a valid prescription for them. But we do ship to the office if that is what they prefer.
So, and to let you know, we do have in our rules a pickup station rule.
Yes.
And so it is a little odd. I know at least for Arkansas, I think there's a couple of states that do this. So I think we understand you have first dose issues where you do need to educate the patient, either a pharmacist doing this, a nurse or the prescriber on first dose. I think that generally has been okay. We have seen patterns of some other pharmacies that they ship every dose. And some of this trend, Trimix is a good example because you need to show people how Trimix works. There are drugs like Vivitrol is a good example that has to be administered in a clinical setting. Like the FDA approved drug can only be administered that way. You would never send that to a patient's home. You wouldn't send Remicade, which is an infusion, to a patient's home unless you had some arrangement that there was nursing service meeting there for it. Where we are mainly seeing this today, though, are similar to some stuff you've got in here, like these diet compounds, that we have a plethora of prescriber offices that are making this you come in and we'll dose you every week and weigh you and everything else. But the FDA approved products are self-care products. Now, not self-care as in OTC, but self-administrable products. I did not see in yours that you guys were pushing, semaglutide to be combined with B vitamins or anything. Are you guys in the middle of that game?
No, we are not.
Okay.
And actually, we are compounding semaglutide at the moment. However, it is going to be sent to our sister pharmacy. So I think at the end of this quarter, we won't be compounding semaglutide anymore.
Okay.
They are moving that to a more 503A type or 503B type facility. So we won't be compounding
Okay.
much longer.
On your semaglutide,
Yes.
how do you know you've got the right base ingredient?
So the manufacturer of the product, they've been vetted. We have the C of A. There was an issue with it being not the exact molecule, and they've gone through all of that. We get it from Fagron, and it's been vetted by the FDA.
Okay.
So since we're talking about compounding, so have you done any, I know they provide you a COA, the repackager or whatever. But are you doing any in-house testing of
Yes.
your own? You're doing
Yes.
your own COAs?
Yes, and we're sending it away to Pharmetric and ARL.
Okay. Are you dispensing multi-dose containers
We have, yes.
of those agents? Okay. So of those like semaglutide and tirzepatide you're dispensing in multi-dose containers, are you evaluating them against USP 51?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And we don't do tirzepatide, just the semaglutide.
So let's go back to the relationship with Revelation Pharmacy.
Yes.
So when you go on their website, you can look and looks like they have, you can pick out the outsourcing facilities that they have. What's the relationship between the pharmacies? They own all of those. Is there products going back and forth between those pharmacies and the 503Bs? What's that relationship?
No, at this moment, everything that Pencold dispenses, Pencold makes.
At this
So-
point, is that going to change in the future?
They are talking about turning one facility into a 503B, but nothing has transpired as of yet.
When you send the prescriptions to the prescriber, Does the prescriber charge the patient or are you charging the patient?
Both.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yeah, we opened up a long time ago for the shared service type agreement for that on veterinarians, but we're aware it happens a lot, but in some ways, there are some arguments, we have yet to see FDA take action on this, that if the prescriber pays you and then upcharges the patient, they're technically reselling that patient's drug or something else. So they usually have put it in, it's part of their overall health or wellness package where they're saying, well, we do this whole wellness thing and it includes the cost of the drug. So we're not marking up the drug, we're marking up the rest of our clinical service.
Is it okay if I take notes? I was looking.
Absolutely. So we can give you a little notepad if you want it.
Well, thank you. And here's our breakdown too. Thank
great.
you.
Here you go. It's a spider graph.
Since there's a lull, I'll say on that stuff that I've seen where they send it to the doctor's office, I've heard, and of course I haven't seen it, but I've heard from the nursing board inspectors where they'll run into, they're pre-drawing this stuff up. And that's why I asked about the multi-dose, if it's dispensed as multi-dose. We have seen some where they don't test against 51, USP 51. So they'll put bacteriostatic water or saline in there. And they infer that infers bacteriostatic activity for 28 days like it's supposed to. You can't do that. And so when they're doing that and getting in the office, I'm hearing that they're pre-drawing these up. So if it didn't have an appropriate preservative in it, that could be an issue. So anyway.
Well, that's the same thing, because you guys are seeing it as a vial, is the way it looks to me. Having many years ago, from this office, we had to go investigate a wellness clinic, and they were doing the same thing with testosterone and like Bimix and Trimix. And to help things flow at the clinic, when they would get testosterone, they would just go pull up, however many syringes they could get out of however many vials. And we opened up a cabinet in basically a carpeted room like this that was also their lunch area. And there was an entire, it looked like a holder for pencils or pens, and it was full of testosterone syringes that no one had any idea how long they had been there. They were not done in a sterile environment. We have a lot of concerns about, how to store stuff as a pharmacist in a pharmacy, and we know how things are supposed to be stored, as many of us being pharmacists. But we also were taught all of that in school, just like we got a law course on what happens if you don't do this stuff right. And they just don't have that in nursing school or medical school. It's not part of their standards. So we have no idea how it's being stored there, let alone how patients are getting it dosed. So.
Yes, and I think one of the correspondence I had with Dr. McCready, where we talked about that, and there was a clear issue with having it being shipped to the office more than the first dose. And so at Pencol, I told her that we would have a standard and that we would talk to Revelation about the order forms, that will not be allowed. So that they are aware of that, and also just the first dose going to the provider's office, and all subsequent doses have to be shipped to the patient.
And if you get a permit, even on the Revelation thing, that's only for the one location, not
Absolutely. Yeah, no, every
affiliates.
pharmacy has their own licensing requirements, and we're all different.
And you've probably seen, I know it's a newer rule, but like Rule 7, where you have to call the patient ahead of time, get their approval for any billing, shipping, all of that.
So we do that. That is our process. Sorry to cut you off, but that's our process at the pharmacy. We get an order, we call the patient, give them a price, ETA, before we make anything. So that's not just Arkansas patients. We do that with any patient that we service.
We covered that in an email we talked about.
Okay.
Their application said they would attempt to counsel, and I explained to her that you have to counsel in Arkansas. It says shall, not might. So,
If you're calling them ahead of time, it's a prime opportunity.
Yes.
What questions you got?
yeah.
That's it for staff.
You guys have any questions?
I think staff
Any
just wanted,
concerns based on the
I think
answer?
staff just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page as far as what Arkansas law allows them to do and what they can't do. And because the application had some things in there that we had questions about that we don't normally allow, we felt like that they needed to come before and present to the board, have it on the record. Obviously, all the meetings are recorded and all that, and so all the answers are on the record and everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so we've got all the answers we need.
I
Yeah.
think so.
I don't think that Fagron or Fagron has semaglutide on their website as an offered chemical.
And I might have can I?
Yeah,
Check.
I was gonna say, like,
Yeah,
you know,
no.
especially with Dr. McRae, like this is recording, it'll be on YouTube if it's,
I think
if
it's
it's
Star
not
America.
them.
I think it's Star America. One second.
Darmerica
Yes.
sounds,
Star.
yeah, they're the API manufacturer we hear.
Yeah.
Also. Okay, that's what it is.
Sorry, I'm nervous.
Otherwise, you have a whole bunch of like sister boards all going, Fagron, you're selling this to.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
no,
what are you
sorry.
talking
I
about?
misspoke.
PCCA doesn't sell it either. Yeah.
Wondered if they're using their own.
Oh, the question, you know, if you're using the extended BUD or dating for stability, that's like a PCCA formula, that you're using all the chemicals
All the
they use,
chemicals.
all
Yes, ma'am.
PCCA, not going third-party source. We run it
No.
that
Of
time.
course, nowadays with the revisions to you, y'all are following
Yeah.
the new November the 1st, so they can't extend,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. So we got
Do you need a motion to approve the application? or-
that's what we're looking for.
Second.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
That's the last thing we need. I'm gonna try to fold this over and pass it down without making a mess of her folder. All right, so they're gonna sign off on it. And then we already had our pharmacist and everything else. That's it. Yeah. So with that, we should be able to get your permit.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Next. And thank you, Drew.
That's all we
Yep.
So right now, we are looking to start again in the morning at 9 o'clock. We have cases throughout the day.
Yeah.
We have noticed up for an emergency hearing tomorrow afternoon that we anticipate having at the end of the day. We'll work through the day. Dr. Newsom will be with us tomorrow, so we'll move around spots and we'll find at least a fifth board member for that emergency hearing. I think we noticed it for 3:30.
She's already taken care of it.
Okay, okay. So that's it until tomorrow at 9.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Adjourned for the day.